question that I have on that. These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days? Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing?
So she calling him brave from back then? Like, this makes no sense.
I wanted to follow up on the first video I did with this event with Gavin Stone, who was returned.
Everybody just needs to calm down a little bit. And, you know, there's a lot of speech going on by people who don't realize
that shit was more staged than a Tyler Perry production of Medea Runs for President.
their voices are being heard by so many people. They're so influential.
He's just minutes into his speech when shots are fired.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Donald Trump
Here you can see the 3 victims that were injured by gunfire and where they were standing in the bleachers.
get up after getting shot in the face.
Almost 100% certainty that those rounds came from that rooftop where Crooks was shooting.
All right, welcome back to yet another video covering the Trump assassination attempt. I wanted to follow up on the first video I did with this event with Gavin Stone, who has returned with us today. And we also had Thomas Pecora, who had CIA security experience, Secret Service experience. And Gavin and I have been talking to him on the side, but he was unable to make it today. But we also have with us Nate the lawyer. Now, Nate the lawyer is not only just a fabulous, super famous YouTuber that we all know, but Nate the lawyer was previously a police officer. And then after that, he was a DA. And then after that, he was a law professor. So Nate has some really good on-the-ground experience to observe and address some of these issues as they're coming up. And as I've said before, every video is a conversation. So when I put out a video, people are commenting. I'm constantly reading the comments and looking into what they're saying. And I'm trying to answer things that come in because the information is changing all the time. And when I'm putting out this information, or we are putting out this information, we may get it wrong. Or it may be incomplete, or you may not like our conclusions, but this is just what we are observing from the information that we have now. None of us were there. We are not on the ground. We did not see it firsthand. And even if we were, we could still get it wrong. As an example, one of my interviews on this subject was with a witness who saw the event. Now, that witness, when he saw the event, told me about how the speakers shot out a dark mist after the bullet struck. And we didn't know what that mist was. He didn't know what it was. We speculated thinking, you know, that would be kind of cool if they had some sort of a remote mechanism or whatever, if there's fire that, you know, something sprays out to help, you know, camouflage or to block visibility. But that actually was not what happened. The comments came in strong and fierce, which I really appreciate, telling me that what in fact happened was a bullet struck the hydraulic line of the forklift that was holding up the PA speakers at the event. That bullet hit caused the spray to come out over the crowd. So because we didn't go deep into the commentary, it makes it easier for me to receive new information and share that with you. And let's go ahead and look at what in fact did happen with this video. You can see clearly that spray that came out and the PA falling down.
Yeah.
With the forklift. So fabulous. And I appreciate everybody sending the feedback. And then somebody even sent the video, which helps so much. So please comment below. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell us anything you want. I do want to know. And I am not above saying that I just don't know. And that's part of what our goal is. This is 1 week. Right now, we are 1 week after the event took place. It's still so early in it. It's amazing. As my partner, Mark, on America's Untold Story said, we're 60 years past the JFK assassination and we're still investigating and still haven't figured it all out. So we can't expect to have this solved in a week. We could just look at what we have. So another thing I want to follow up on is there's been some dispute about the police officer who encountered the assassin on the roof. And I've had some vigorous discussions with people about it, saying that I don't want to judge what the police officer did. I was responding to people who were comparing his actions to Uvalde, where I think most people would say the police response there was subpar at a minimum, and probably even more extreme than that.
Well, I think, to be fair, you'd call that criminal. What happened in Uvalde was essentially criminal, right? You're supposed to respond. You're not supposed to respond. But with this, could you just give us a quick recap so everyone hearing it know exactly what you're talking about the officer?
Yes. I actually will not give us a recap, but I'm going to have the city manager give us a recap.
Perfect.
They did do a perimeter search. We're unable to see the person on top of the building from their vantage point. So one of our other police officers, 2 total, literally boosted one of our police officers up high enough in the air to grab hold of the edge of the roof. Approximate height of 12 feet from ground to where he was able to grab a handhold. Officer pulled himself up to where his head was above the roof. Did observe an individual on the roof. Individual was identified as having a weapon and did point that firearm at our officer. That time, our officer took up a defensive position from hanging from a ledge, ducked his head, did in fact lose his grip, fell approximately 8 feet, did sustain an injury to his ankle. While prone on the ground, both the lifting officer and the prone officer both called in, identifying the individual on the roof as being armed.
Okay. So I think that's extremely relevant, qualifying information. Nate, you've been a police officer before. Have you had that kind of scenario where you need to be hoisted up, or you're hoisting up your partner to go look at something high or things like that?
Well, not where we're doing the whole, somebody sits on your shoulders situation. But I have had situations where, for instance, there was one time we were chasing a robbery suspect onto a roof of a building, and there was a ladder going up to the roof. So me and my partner, actually it was 3 of us. We were, we did the vertical, the building search, and we got to the roof, and one of the witnesses was like, "Yeah, we heard the guy go up to the roof." So the only way to get up to the roof was to climb up the ladder. And you can hold your gun and climb up the ladder. So one person would have to go up there and essentially make themselves vulnerable to this guy who now we suspect was an armed robbery. It was a knife armed robbery. So that guy could just be right above the port and stab us or something like that. So we had to call in the ESU team to come in, because they are more equipped of maybe going to another rooftop to make sure we can get up there clearly and stuff like that. Because obviously, the number one thing when it comes to law enforcement, the number one thing is officer safety, right? It's my safety above the other people's safety. But when you're talking about things like the Secret Service and military, it's not your personal safety. It's the mission. It's the completing the mission. So you can give your life up for the mission, but in law enforcement, we don't give our life for the mission. We try to keep our, to stay alive while completing the mission. So in this particular instance, the way I'm understanding it is that officer safety is paramount in law enforcement, right? And you hear that all the time. That essentially gives you the reason to kill other people with deadly physical force. Officer safety is paramount. You want to go home. So in certain situations like this, if an officer sees someone in this position and you can't engage them safely, then the best thing for you to do is what this officer did: call for resources, call for backup. But my question in this situation seems to be what happens after that call goes out in the radio. What type of communication do you have with the Secret Service? Because I have done security details with the Secret Service before. I've done it for Colin Powell, former President Clinton, a couple of senators, because when I worked at the school, we had all these people come and do commencement speeches and stuff. Like I was one of the shadows for Colin Powell, for instance. So he had so when he was right after he left office, he had like a light detail, and we would do his work. So like for instance, he's giving a speech, we look at the crowd. We literally just, you see a whole bunch of people just staring at the crowd, no matter what he's saying, because we're looking to see if there are people doing things that are not normal in the crowd and things of that nature.
Yes, as a matter of fact, not to interrupt, but Tom Pecora pointed out last time that one of Reagan's Secret Service detail was looking at Ronald Reagan instead of looking at the crowd like you just described.
Yeah.
The result was he was shot.
Exactly. Because that's why you look at the protectorate isn't the person you got to worry about. It's the people in front of you. So in this instance, everything that if that account is correct, everything I think the officers did was correct, because you're trying to at least get eyes on what's going on. If they did get eyes, and if somebody did point a weapon at them, causing them to fall, then it's really what happens after that call goes out. We have somebody on the roof of this building with the firearm, because I would say my next couple of questions is, how do I know that's not Secret Service? How do I know that's not another law enforcement? But the reason why I would be concerned that, or my assumption would be, it's not, because the person points a weapon at me. I know it's not law enforcement, because the number one thing is, don't point your weapon at somebody. Yeah. That's literally the number one rule. If I have a gun, I do not point it at anybody unless I'm willing to try to attempt to kill you or stop a threat. So if you have somebody on the roof with a rifle and they turn and point the rifle at me because I'm looking up, that there's an issue with that. It automatically makes me think that maybe not somebody in law enforcement. Now, again, since I don't work with the Secret Service, I don't know what their protocols are. They can have a sniper on the roof and say, hey, if somebody else comes up to the roof, you got to take them out because they may become. I don't know what their thing is. But for us in law enforcement, you don't point a gun at anybody unless you're willing to shoot. And just so that end, also the way the person's dressed. It could be a way. But again, if you're working with multiple different organizations, for us, the Secret Service wouldn't tell us everything they're doing, obviously. Right? They're not going to tell us everything they're doing. And they kind of directed us to exactly. Yeah. And they directed us. Like for instance, when we were doing the Clinton stuff for the graduation, they directed us to certain places. Like, we'd like you guys to be here, because they wanted us to do more mass crowd control versus their protectorate. They want to take care of and bubble their protectorate, but they want us to do so. So that's kind of we didn't know where all the snipers were at, for instance, right? We didn't know where all those, because that's something that handles. So I can see how the confusion can get there between, you have the local law enforcement on the ground who kind of know the area, and Secret Service who kind of puts their assets in certain places, and that level of secrecy for how they want to deploy their assets, I think is necessary, because that's the best way to protect the former president.
All right, Gavin, love to hear your thoughts on it. And most of all, I know I've shown you that clip before, or variants of the clip. Is he telling the truth, in your opinion?
In my opinion, yeah. There was a couple of little bits where anybody, if they didn't know any better, might turn around and say, well, there's tongue juts and there's things that show possible deception. And if you look at the points that he's talking about, those where he's talking when those tongue juts happen, it's at the point where the individual pointed the rifle or the weapon at his officer. And obviously that's going to leave a bad taste in his mouth. He's thinking about his officer having a weapon pointed at him. So there's little bits and pieces like that. If it was an armchair expert, might say, he did that and he did this, and these are signs of deception. They're not. These are signs of bad taste for what happened, not from what his law enforcement officer did, but from what what Crooks did. Really, really quickly also, Nate, I've got to ask, because there's been a lot of people online saying, why did, and I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you. They were saying, why didn't that officer fire his weapon a bunch of times in the air to alert the Secret Service? And so many people have agreed with it, and I thought, oh dear me. So just for the record, apart from the fact that it's not even legal,
it's pretty highly illegal.
could
Don't
you
be down the block.
Oh,
where the
yeah.
bullet falls.
Well, it's first. I think most people who would just understand regular gun safety knows bullets that go up do come down.
Yep.
So you're shooting bullets up, and you got thousands of people around. Those bullets are coming down at a very high rate of speed, and probably can kill some people. Right? You're putting a lot of people's lives into just shooting bullets up in the air, and you have radio there. So the first thing you shoot if somebody gets hurt, the first thing you're going to be on trial, and they're going to say, "Why didn't you use your radio?" Right? So, there's a radio there for a reason. So, and number two is that
you might also draw fire yourself.
Correct.
Exactly.
Because number one, those Secret Service, they do have snipers, as we saw right behind Trump. If you're shooting, they don't know what you're shooting at, and their idea up there is to stop the immediate threat. Somebody's shooting bullets, and the president's there. Guess what? You're probably going to die. Unfortunately, it's just true, right?
Yep.
I'm in the middle field shooting bullets, shooting a gun up. Secret Service snipers.
We don't have time to sort it out.
They don't want to know, oh, this guy, even if I'm dressed in a police uniform, they don't know if that's a costume that I've just got on. They're going to stop that threat and then figure it out later. Oh, my God. Well, why the hell was he shooting the gun up in the air? No cop does that. Another thing, too, is that some people may say, well, why didn't he try to shoot the guy on the roof? Well, there's so many different things for that. Number one, you don't know who this guy is. You don't know if he's working for the Secret Service or whatever. You have some issues here. You may be scared, but you just need more information. You do go over the phone, over the radio, and let them know. But for anybody who has a gun, you have to know what's in front of your target, what's behind your target. You got to know what the hell the target is, too, right?
Physically, Nate. I mean, never mind all that. How? I mean,
you got a broken ankle.
You're hanging from the roof. It's taking two hands. Where are you putting the gun? How are you doing it? I'm not sure if he's Spider-Man. Okay, cool. But, if he's literally just pulling himself up to peek, where's the gun going to happen? And then here's another question. People say, well, just reach over the top. Well, what? At this kind of angle, you're going to be hanging? It just physically doesn't make sense. I don't think that...
well, not only that, when he fell down, it also broken his ankle, so the chances of him being able to get back up with or without his partner to be able to fire.
Yeah, they were talking about at that time because the guy started firing immediately after. Apparently,
let me just explain that for people who've never had a gun aimed at them. If you can imagine walking into your bedroom one night and you open the door and a lion pounces at you, right, and you go ah, right. That's what it's like. That feeling is what it's like when somebody points a weapon at you. And I don't care how tough or how kind of cool everybody is, you panic, you do freak out. Yes, you might have training that says, right, duck for cover, pull your own weapon, blah blah blah. But that feeling that you get, especially in that kind of scenario,
duck. You duck, and then you return fire. Just natural.
That's it. Well, you've been through that in your army training. The first thing you do, as soon as they shout contact, you dive on the floor.
Yeah. It's the same thing. That's why you go through the training, right? The training is to give you that muscle memory. So if something happens, you know how to react. And these cops acted, I think, the way they should have reacted, even though I think, getting on this whole, the shoulder thing may have put them in a vulnerable position. But I'm assuming they just wanted to put eyes up there on the target.
Well, it's time-wise. I mean, this is going on. You hear him talking. I mean, I think they handled it well. You hear him talking. People are saying, there's a guy in the roof. There's a guy in the roof. There's a guy. Well, let me look.
Yeah, they see the guy.
Yeah,
but now it's obviously this is going to come to what happened after that. So
hold on,
because we stopped the radio call. What happened?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to share this, but it might be a light moment. But this is somebody from overseas. I don't know the original source, but it's another country, and they may have documented what actually happened.
Which building? The only building in front of the stage. Ah, that building. Maybe not. How maybe not? You think it's necessary? I see a guy moving on the roof. Ah, the usual guys. Boss is very suspicious. He might be doing a parkour. He's lying down flat on his stomach. He's probably resting after doing parkour. He's looking towards Trump. Maybe the Trump fan tried to get a better view of him. Okay, he's pulled out a rifle. A rifle. Definitely a rifle. Can you tell if it's a real rifle? How I know if it's real? Maybe it's fake and we are worrying for nothing. It's a real rifle. Very strange. Boss, awaiting your orders. Do you see any clay pigeon shooting devices? I don't think he's practicing shooting clay pigeons. We need to be sure, Frank. Boss, now he's aiming towards Trump. Can you see his expression? What expression? His facial expression. He seems to be mad. I don't know, boss. Or is he looking at him admirably? I can't tell. Maybe he's just using the rifle scope to get a better look. Boss, if we don't act now, he will shoot him. Stay calm, Frank. I don't think. He's shooting, boss. Holy cow. He's still shooting. What do I do? Are you sure you don't see any clay pigeons around? No clay pigeons. All right, in that case, fire a warning shot immediately. We couldn't have known, Frank. We did everything we could. Some things are just unpredictable. An attack on a presidential candidate and a guy shooting. This is not the US I know.
All kidding aside, sometimes the most hilarious things have a kernel of truth to it. Mm-hmm. As we look into what went down, obviously it's not that scenario that's coming, but it feels like that scenario in some ways. So let's talk about some of these.
Yeah, I want to be very. I think the Secret Service, just like with January 6th, there's always a fall guy, right? For January 6th, that was a security failure. That wasn't an insurrection. That was a total security failure. You had 5 officers there to stop 10,000 people. Anybody in any other context, that would be a security failure. But when January 6th, you got to blame the right? It was a mob. No, a security failure. This, I think, is in that same exact boat. This is a massive security failure because soon as you see, or even if you think that there's somebody, you see somebody on a roof with a clear line of sight, they don't have to have a gun. That should have been the call to get the candidate, whoever was on stage. No, you can't go on stage right now because we have an issue over here on this roof. So from my understanding, all this happened before Trump had actually taken the stage. Like, he was taking the stage at that particular time. And I think this is the first domino to fall, because generally, if you hear someone armed on a roof, the president is on the stage, my first instance is to get him off the stage, and then other things happen. Does that make sense?
Of course. Yes. That, by the way, is really should be the number one question. And I think too many facts have come forward that he never should have been on that stage.
At that time.
Period. End of story. This was a known, identified threat before he even went on. Mm-hmm. No way he should have been on there. And it goes on. It goes deeper. They found a range finder on him. Now, these are widely reported facts. This is not speculation from weird accounts. This is national news. These are accounts, literally stating what went down. How in the hell does he get in with a rangefinder? What do you need a rangefinder for at a political event? Help me out. And they let him have it. There's other issues. He was wandering around. There's film of him wandering around. It's been confirmed. They found his bicycle, for Christ's sakes. I mean, was he moving in? I really wonder. It's like, so you're wandering around, you get a rangefinder, you're bicycling around. What the hell is going on here? Seriously, what the hell is going on here? And I like the different memes and things like this. This one I thought was particularly funny. And it's by an account called Amuse. But I feel it's kind of like the Secret Service are really doing this. And they're trying to say, no, we didn't have to protect that building because it fell within the Pac-Man, or it was outside the Pac-Man perimeter.
Yeah, not within the circle.
Yeah, exactly, which I just love. Again, all jokes aside, it really is feeling like that, right? And the same account, by the way, a few months ago pointed out that you could use the Pac-Man security bubble as well for the cocaine found in the White House. So apparently that cocaine also fell. We got to really work on this Pac-Man security perimeter. Like, maybe we need a full circle, guys, because there's something definitely going wrong here. But going into it, again, I'm saying all kidding aside, and then I'm kidding, but this is such a heavy topic. I do want to keep mixing levity in where I can. Mm-hmm. And I also want to name and shame. The Security Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, showed up at the RNC. Credit for her to have nerve. I mean, that is not the place that I would want to go if I were the director of the Secret Service. But let's listen to this confrontation from these senators who wanted to know more information. You can hear information that they found out, which I think is very, very important, because they are getting firsthand information or reports directly from the FBI and Secret Service to them. So they have better sources than I do, and you guys do, I believe.
Oh yeah, oh hell yeah.
So let's extract from them.
Run out of blessing good habits. Everyone runs.
He starts off by saying we're very disappointed. Every one of us want to know, essentially what's going on. We have questions we want to ask about the responses. I've called for your resignation.
Without the gut drug, the COVID strong, allowing him to go on saying inside the area at a time that he'd already been alerted.
Allowing him to go on to stage in Pennsylvania at a time you had already been alerted.
About it, now that James Potter's all these situations already identified an hour before.
He was identified an hour before.
And in the left-hand that one phase, without knowledge of some.
And you let him go on stage without the knowledge.
On it loud, it means the hammer appears less than the rest of his stop. You understand to report explanation to us love now.
Resignation or full explanation to us right now. They confronted her with the information that you knew an hour before. You let him still go on stage. It was this person was identified as an actual active threat. So it wasn't just like, oh, hey, there's people wandering. What do you want? I mean, okay, there's some people, fine. You went, check them out, blah, blah, blah. They lost track of the guy multiple times. So they knew that there was somebody doing some weirdness that had a rangefinder, for Christ's sakes. I mean, what else do you want?
A couple of things. One, she is, I like to call, when I was in law enforcement, we used to call them the blue shirts and the white shirts, right? The white shirts were the people who were sitting on nice little comfy air conditioning while we're out there in 100-degree heat, wrestling people and all that stuff, right? So she is what I like to call the ivory tower. She's the top of the top. She doesn't know, she really doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know the guy's been identified. She doesn't know any of that stuff. But I think she is the one that's going to obviously eventually have to take the downfall. But I think in this situation, yeah, of course, because it's under her department. I think from my understanding of what happened, this seemed to be a failure in communication between the various law enforcement agencies that were there, right? So if cops, because the way it generally works is that the federal officials, the Secret Service, they don't know that area. This is probably some first time many of them have ever even been there, right? So you have to kind of rely on the local law enforcement to really get the lay of the land, right? Who's the threats? Who's this? Who's that? Who's this?
Yeah, but I'm gonna go and push back a little bit. There's that building there. That's a pretty good shot. Might put somebody on there. Oh wait, it's a sloped roof.
No, I'm not talking about the building. I'm just talking about the general parlance of the area. The people who are going to do the patrol on that perimeter are going to be the local cops. It's not going to be, because they may not have that many agents to actually do those patrols. So when I talk about communication, I think they did have people inside. Now we know they had people inside the building, but now you have somebody on top of the roof. When that person is identified by regular people, right? It was regular people who alerted their local police. Their local police then communicate to Secret Service, right? Hey, we got somebody on this particular roof. Now that's where
even before that, Nate, he actually traded eye glances with the Secret Service sniper. He was looking through the rangefinder at the Secret Service sniper, who in turn looked back at him. That's been reported.
Yeah. All right.
So I mean, it's beyond the cops here. Secret Service guy, you got somebody down there. He probably knows what a rangefinder is. I'm just guessing.
But even so, that's a failure, I think, with the Secret Service on that end too, right? That's even a worse. But I'm talking about we were talking about the cop pulling himself up.
Oh yeah, but that's done. We've already cleared that one up.
So,
I'm talking about the failures of Trump being on stage at all. Period. That's plenty of notice.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going. So an hour ahead, there's a nut out there, right?
Yes.
You're not going to stop the whole thing, right? You're going to say, okay, let's keep an eye out for that nut. Now you get somebody on the roof. You get a radio call in saying, hey, somebody's on the roofs and they're armed. Now that communication should have, as soon as it hit the Secret Service, the person who's on the other end of that line has to now make that call. Hey, listen, we can't put him on stage because we got someone on this building with a clear line of sight to the stage with a rifle. That should have been end of story. Now you're adding the whole thing about the sniper and all other stuff. Now I think that's actually even worse. Now it gets even worse, right? Now you got snipers.
There's a active threat. I mean, it's like no, it's not just a nut wandering around. It's somebody with a rangefinder. What the hell do they use it for, Nate? I mean, maybe they're gonna go golfing later.
Even with the rangefinder, I'm thinking you got the nut on the thing with a rifle. I think that's enough to say we got a problem. Now, I also believe that at that point in time, there's nut on the roof, and it's not one of your people because again, the cops. I would give the cops the benefit of the doubt, saying we don't know who that person is, but the Secret Service. If you have that situation, either that's one of your guys on the roof with the rifle, or that guy's a dead man on the roof with the rifle. Right? It's either somebody you know. Or it's somebody who's got to be killed. There's no really in between when you're the Secret Service in that particular position. So if you do have a sniper who sees someone, unidentified individual on a roof with the rifle, that person has to die.
Okay, the exchange I'm talking about, he didn't have the rifle, as far as I know.
Okay, all right.
So, no, I don't think an hour before he was seen with the rifle. I think an hour before he was seen. Wandering, skulking, casing, and with the rangefinder as well. He also was seen like 3 hours before, and he was.
Yeah, I'm going to say, let me jump in there for a second, Eric, because he was also seen the day before. He was also seen 3 hours before doing a reconnaissance. He was seen an hour before, and I think it was several hours before he was being classed as and I forgot, a person of interest. And it went from a person of interest to an hour before. They then changed it. They upped it from a person of interest to something like a suspicious person. I'm not sure of the exact terminology they used, but a person of suspicion or a suspicious person or something like that, because he was doing things that wasn't congruent with what somebody should be doing on that day. And then it escalated even more to 10 minutes before Trump even went on stage, to him then going to a credible threat. At that point is when they should have said, at the very least, delay Trump going onto the stage.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to necessarily call it off, but let's find out where this guy is and what he's doing before we let the former president of the United States go onto the stage when there is a credible threat out there. And they also should have told former President Trump as well that there is a credible threat out there, and what would he like us to do about it?
It isn't like he hasn't been late before. I think he's been late on other speeches. I don't know for sure, but I could swear I've seen that. People are waiting around. And he finally showed up.
It's like this before too that happened where you have somebody who you don't really know if the place is secure or not.
Right.
You hold everything off for a couple of minutes. Yeah, I've been, but I'm going to say this though. Yes, all that suspicious stuff, but everything that you guys have told me beforehand. What do you do even if you find the guy? Do you arrest the guy? Because you can't arrest him because you don't really have anything. You can maybe question him because
you can detain him.
To be even fair, you might not even be able to do that.
No, but you can at least ask him what he's doing.
To him. You can hang out with him. You could be like, "Well, I'm going to walk around with you."
The first thing you can do is you can go and you make contact. Hey, what are you doing? Is everything all right? We see you're acting kind of strange here, and the guy can say, "Piss off! I'm going," and just walk away. Right? There's people believe that now because we're looking at it from hindsight, 2020, right? Look at all these things. We had a rangefinder. Let's say the cops caught him with the rangefinder. Hey, what are you doing with this rangefinder? Oh, I'm just doing this. You can't. It's not like you can arrest him and say, "Oh, you got a rangefinder, we arrest him." But I think when you talk about law enforcement, you get to a point of critical mass where you're saying, "I got a guy on a roof, right? And that guy isn't one of my guys." That's the point where I think there's no choice but to take that guy out, especially if at time he's on the so even before, yes, there are a lot of things that could have been happened, and I think there's a lot of things in the mix. But the time where I think law enforcement failed is when he's on the roof, he's got a gun, and snipers and everybody know he's up there. At that time, there is no we got to wait to see what happens. There is no maybe this is someone of no. If that's not one of your guys, he's got to go. And if you guys, that's always again from my understanding and from the training that I've taken, that's always been the way it goes. Random guy on a roof with a gun. We don't question. We don't wait for him to fire. We kill him, and then we say, "Oh my God, it was a mistake." The guy, but he's got to go. He's got to go.
Well, okay, I'm still going to harp on the early stuff. Like, they found the rangefinder on him and gave it back to him. Why don't you just say, you know what? I'm going to hang on to this. Why don't you get back with me after the event?
What gives you the right to do that? What gives you the right to
you're not allowed to have an umbrella on events. You could just jettison from the event. Sorry, we don't want you here. You can't come in here with that shit.
You can, but you can't, because you can't see, and that's what I'm saying. In reality, it all sounds good because now we know he had a rangefinder and what the rangefinder was for. But you take his rangefinder, and now you've committed a theft, right? He could be now, oh my God, the cops are stealing my stuff. So that's
no.
That.
Yeah, if he's on the way into the venue, you turn around and you say, look, if you want to come in, leave this rangefinder with us. You can collect it on the way out. You don't have to confiscate.
He doesn't have rights to it.
No. I'm not saying. Yes, if he's going into the venue, you can stop people and say, "Hey, I'm taking this. You can't come in with this." Mm-hmm. I'm talking about if he's just on the street and walking around, and the cops
was on the venue.
Rangefinder.
He went into the venue specifically.
And he went into the venue, and they gave him his rangefinder back.
Yes.
So how did he get the rifle into the venue?
He didn't get the rifle into the venue
ahead of time.
So what happened is he went into the venue with the rangefinder. He walked over towards the building where he would have been taking the shot from. Used the rangefinder to get a rough idea of how far it is to the stage to where Trump will be speaking. He then went back out of the venue again, come back later with a ladder and a rifle, and got on the roof that was outside of the venue perimeter and took the shot from there. And this is from the information that I've been given so far. If anybody can say for definite that one way or the other what didn't or didn't happen, but it was at that point that he showed up on the Secret Service radar, and it was elevated from a person of interest to a suspicious person, because they've said, well, why has he gone right over to that building, pointed the rangefinder at the stage, worked out the mathematics, turned around and gone back out the venue again this early on? It didn't make sense.
And somebody saw him do that with the rangefinder from the Secret Service, and nobody reported that. Now, obviously, that's again a failure, but that's a failure again in communication. And a lot of times, and this happens. So there's a course that when you're in law enforcement you take, but it's a course. It's called it's critical scene management, and the reason why most law enforcement. So if you're a cop, most of your lieutenants and sometimes even your captains have probably taken this course, and the course is about how to manage a scene that's chaotic. It actually developed after 9/11. It's run by Homeland Security. I've taken a course, and what happens is that one of the biggest issues with 9/11 and all these mass, you can have mass casualty events or just events like this that are very very politically charged, is that the communications fail. That's always the first thing to fail, is communications. I know something and I didn't tell it to this person, and then that's how the person's able to do what they do. Mm-hmm. And everything you guys are telling me seems to fall right within those. There's nothing I've heard now that can't be fixed with communication. There's a guy with a rangefinder, blah, blah, blah. There's a guy on the roof, blah, blah, blah. Somebody, and that's the issue that seems to be pervasive throughout this whole thing, is that they weren't communicating between local law enforcement, Secret Service, and that's where I think the reason why the director of the Secret Service has to go, because this is something we've known for almost 30 years, right? This is something we've known since 9/11. You have to be able to communicate, because that's how threats get through.
Mm-hmm. But she seems more interested in the color of the ties that they were wearing, and
yes. I'm telling you, every Secret Service person out there knows this was a failure in the communication. Everything you're telling me now makes sense, right? He went in, these rangefinder, this goes out. Nobody, but if only one person knows and keeps it to themselves, that doesn't help us all, because we're working together.
Dude, but
the thing is,
there's a point where Hanlon's razor even becomes a strain, where do not ascribe to malice that which can be explained by stupidity. Well, the stupidity on this is such high levels of incompetence. It's staggering. It is staggering to the point where it's hard to tell people not to get conspiratorially minded because it's just so. I mean, the Keystone cops are better professionals than some of these moves.
But you're really telling me that you have faith that the government wouldn't have this high level of incompetence, even though they show competency in particular areas. Like, Eric, how many times have we were like, I can't believe they're this incompetent. I can't believe they're this incompetent. And now you find out that, hey, guess what? The government is incompetent. Yes, I assume so.
You've also got to ask yourself here, because you're saying that there's a breakdown in communication, but there was obviously some communication going on. There wasn't obviously an element of communication for him to have raised 3 times from a person of interest to a suspicious person to a credible threat. So they're obviously, and this is within a few hours.
Choices being made here.
Yes, choices. Yeah. Who was the officer in charge? And why was it that he or she decided?
No, who was the Secret Service member in charge? I want to be careful because I think they're trying to lay the shit on the cops, in my opinion. And I actually believe the cops when they say we're a department of 12 and we're given the job to do traffic control. That sounds right. You know, look, very common. When you have a small town, do you think that local police in a small town are equipped for a national figure to come in with many, many thousands of people inside of a place? No, that's a Secret Service job. So don't lay this on the cops.
Yeah. Oh, no. Sorry. When I say officer in charge, I don't necessarily mean the law enforcement. I mean the officer, agent, whichever position. Okay. It would have been down to the Secret Service, whoever's calling the shots at that event, whoever's in charge, whether it's officer, agent, whatever title you want to give them, he's been getting a certain amount of information because the threat level is raised 3 times. He's been given enough information to make a decision, and made the decision to not tell former President Trump, to still allow him to go out onto the stage, and for all the other things to happen. That's the person who I'd be looking at and saying, well, why did you make these decisions? Why did you carry on doing what you did?
In law enforcement, we call the person you guys are talking about the incident commander.
Okay.
So in the structure of this, so whenever you have this type of incident, you have what's called the incident commander. And
is that the commander before the fact or after the fact? Because I know responding to an incident, so it'd just be the command on-site commander beforehand, right?
Yeah. So generally, what you have is that since you have this event, you have an incident commander, and that incident commander is the person who dispels the orders, and that's the person who all the information, the critical information, comes up to, and they make the decisions on how to dispense resources and everything based on that critical. So there's usually an incident commander, a deputy incident commander. Now, when people say this is like Uvalde, that's what happened. You actually had all these officers there ready to respond, but you had no incident commander. So no one was actually to tell the officers, go into the room to save the kids or do anything. So when you don't have an incident commander, it's like no one's in charge. So and when they questioned all the cops at Uvalde, they were like, yeah, we were all waiting to be told what to do. But then come to find out, the guy who was supposed to be the incident commander, he left. He just said, I'm out. And then everybody thought that he was still in charge, but he wasn't. And I think in here, the problem, and again, that's why I said here, the incident commander, I'm not sure if they knew this information because like you guys are saying, that information has to go up a chain. And sometimes it can get stopped. Let's raise this person until it gets to a point where you say, we got to let this person know that there's something more going on, because sometimes the lower level people can't make the call to stop Trump. It's generally the person at the top saying, hey, we got to stop this person from coming in.
They did. The city manager in that interview did say, it wasn't the part I played, but that there was a shared radio band that everybody was tuned into. All the departments. So when they were radioing in, they weren't going, hey, can you tell Bob to do blah, blah, blah? No, they were saying, I am seeing this, and this band is going wide. Everybody is hearing that particular channel. So that's a problem.
So like for us, for instance, when we did the Clinton, when we were doing the thing for Clinton, we were the same thing like the local cops. We're just on the perimeter. They do this. So there's one channel, but everything is coming over that channel, right? You have a whole bunch of information coming over that channel. And so that's what I'm saying. There are certain people who kind of like are filtering that information. This is for me. I got to respond to this. This is for me. And the incident commander is not listening to all that communication. It has to be triaged. So what's important, because they have to make the important decisions. That's why here you can go straight up to the top, because all this information you're telling me are highly, highly relevant things, right? He's got it in the rangefinder. He's a suspicious person. He's on a roof with a gun. If that should be on the top, that should be right there for the incident commander to say, we need to stop this right now because that's the person with the authority and the power to do it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're in agreement that they failed, at least, or just depending on where. Now, I want to jump because there's some other things going around, and these are the parts that's probably going to light up the comments because people are very, very concerned about there being a second shooter. And I'm kind of the mindset of, I'm not going to 100% roll it out. Okay. I'm not going to, but isn't there enough right now with just the information we have that we should be digging into and shredding and tearing apart and, getting to the bottom of without immediately going to it? But let's go ahead and look at this because I want to address everything. And I put out a request for any witnesses. There's supposedly 10 witnesses now. Here's some footage of.
If you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Now you see that figure disappear.
Wait.
Now you see that figure reemerge. Okay.
Okay. This is zoomed out, and there's if you look really closely, next to the tip of that water tower, there's like some shadow there, some shadowy thing. Don't know, and it seems to move, in frame, out of frame. At this angle, what I'm looking at right now, I can't tell that that's anything more than a shadow. I don't know what you guys see, but that I see a shadow.
I see the JFK grassy knoll. This is the grassy knoll again.
Except the grassy knoll's real.
Yeah, and that's the actual water tower where I initially said in the first video it would have been the optimum point to have somebody looking, because it's taller than everything else there. It's overlooking everything. It'd be a perfect spot to have somebody overlooking the entire venue and event. However, I wouldn't have had anybody on the very top there. I'd have had
there's a walkway going around it.
Exactly, which would have been a lot better and given a lot more visual optimization to whoever was up there. So I don't know. The footage isn't clear enough to say.
But also, I do want to say the trajectory of the bullets didn't come from that direction. It came from the other direction, right? So.
Now, you got to be careful when you say things like that. When you see this dark figure, you're priming. When you make that statement, you're actually priming the audience to look for a figure. Instead of saying, look by the top of the thing, there's something there. But you're qualifying it further by saying figure, or am I wrong on that, Nate? You've done witness questioning, things like that. Is that kind of leading us down the line?
I think this is tough because he is asking someone, do you see something which there is something dark there? That could be, so I don't know how else would you describe it, right? Do you see the shadowy?
Do you see a spot? Do you see something there?
Yeah. Because he didn't say you see a dark person or a shadow of a person. He's trying to make it neutral, but I do understand what you're saying. Because I do see something. I just don't know what it is.
It could be anything. It could be a flag. It could be a door flapping open and closed. It could be. So there's so many things it could be. Yeah, we haven't got a clue.
I want to just point out something, especially now that I'm really, really looking at this. As we're going through this, notice we're watching the dot, right? Do me a favor, don't watch the dot for a second. Watch the edges and notice that the edges are moving.
Yes.
So I'm going to say that, are we looking at, in fact, something or someone ducking behind that? Or are we looking at a shadow? And then if we move the camera slightly, the shadow disappears and it comes back. So I'm just going to play it again. I literally just saw that right now as I was really focusing in. We're going to go back. See the shakiness of the camera here. Now the whole camera's moving, and it feels like it's moving, shadow moving back, light. That could well be a shadow, guys, in my opinion. I don't know. My eyes aren't perfect. I've got glasses on. I don't know. But I do feel like that camera is moving, and that should be taken into consideration on this particular.
Yeah, it's not clear enough to say conclusively exactly what it is, and until then, unless any more footage or clear footage or anything else comes out, then I don't think you could definitely say exactly what it was.
And also, just for that note, I did an interview with Lynn Westover, who is a Marine sniper, and he has recorded a short video for me describing what he sees and what he thinks, and I'm inserting it here.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Lynn Westover here, having some more conversations with Eric, and decided to put a little quick video together, or as quick as I can, talking about some of this new information that's been coming out and some of the things that people are talking about, specifically with regard to these theories that are taking place. So we'll get right into it. Some of the big things that are coming out is, hey, there's multiple shooters. There was a shooter on top of the water tower, and specifically that Crooks had some help. So my takeaway on it, I'm going to talk a little bit about the plausibility versus probability, the importance of the investigation, and then therefore the importance of the transparency and how that's impacted how people have looked at this information as it's coming out. So specifically, I'm going to talk a little bit about some geometries of fire issues, visibility, the shooting positions and their inherent stability, therefore accuracy from the perspective of the assassin. We're going to talk a little bit about how humans really see, and video latency, video literacy, and how that applies to how it is that we see. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the realities of shooting and ballistics, and wrap that all into our conclusions. So first and foremost, looking at geometries of fire and visibility. I mentioned before angle cosine. That water tower would have a significant impact on angle cosine, essentially doing trigonometry. So just because I have one distance that's line of sight, that is not the same as the actual traveled distance. So essentially the base of that triangle there. What that could mean for the shooter, whether they know to factor that in or not, is they may end up be hitting higher than where they had intended to shoot. So those are things that could come into play with that. Additionally, you have things like dead space, defilade, so that's space that's behind mass. And then also you have to factor in the location of the other victims in relation to where those shooting positions were, or shooting positions specifically, because I believe it to be from that rooftop where they found the actual shooter Crooks, in relation to where Trump was hit and Chief Corey was hit. So a few things looking at those shooting positions and understanding, like, how do they look, and how does that impact how well those shots are going to be made? So you have some main types of shooting positions. You have the prone, the sitting, the kneeling, and the standing. I'm only going to talk about the prone, kneeling, and standing. I consider the sitting position to be very close to the prone. It's a little bit easier to get into than the prone. Depending on your level of flexibility, you can get almost just as low in the sitting as you can with the prone. Prone is tough at times. It's hard to be in a good position. It's hard to have good viz, but it is the most stable of shooting positions. You're going to be the most accurate from the prone. Now, I took these photos just so you could get an idea. Like, essentially from the prone, the one great thing about it is the target there isn't as much of a target presented in the prone. So that's why it made it difficult for the counter snipers to try to get a shot on Crooks, because he was on the back side of that ridge of the roof. And essentially all you're seeing here with me is my head and shoulders. Same thing from the side. It's a very low, very stable position. Now compare that to the kneeling. The kneeling is a little bit higher. This I would call the mid to low kneeling here. But basically it's going to be a lot faster for me to get into. It's not as stable as the prone or the sitting, and it has a very specific look to it as far as kinesically, what you would see from a distance. And these things will come into play later when I talk about the video that they captured from the water tower, right? And now you have the standing, also known as the offhand. This is the least stable. It is the fastest, but you are the most exposed in this position. You can tell from a distance what it looks like when somebody's in the standing position. And again, some of these thoughts will come into play when we get to those portions of the video that I put together for you guys. So basically, the thing to understand, though, with the standing is that you are making a decision between quick versus accurate, depending on the range that you're shooting at. I mean, if we're talking about CQB here, close quarters battle, that's going to be negligible. However, when you're talking at the distances that we were looking at for this situation, that it's a little dicey in my opinion, right? So let's talk a little bit about how we actually see. The way we visually perceive things is a result of what our brain tells us and not so much of what our eyes tell us. So one thing that I was bringing up as far as the kinesics of what it looks like in the prone position versus the standing or the kneeling, another thing we have to consider are the 5 V's. So here's a little example that I put together for you guys to see what I mean by the 5 V's. Primitively, that's us as human beings, how we're able to determine what it looks like when we see another human being. So we got V number 1, V number 2, that's above the arms and on either side of the head. V number 3, V number 4, that's below the arms, around the midriff. And then you got V number 5, that's in between the legs. That's how, even in the middle of the night, we can see from a distance, hey, that's a human being. That's what a human being looks like. Then you factor in things like positive, negative, or dead space. That's how we see the world. Us as human beings, we are attracted to positive space. All right, things like negative space, like wide open spaces, we're not attracted to, and we will paint over. You add in things like lighting conditions, scotopic, photopic, or mesopic. So scotopic, that's dark or nighttime. Photopic, that's daytime. Mesopic is in between. Your cones and your rods will conflict when they're going between those different lighting conditions. Other things you have to factor in is also the use of shadows. So here in this photo I've shown, you have different shadows versus different bright lights, and that can impact what it is that you see. So here's a little example I put together for you guys. So this is called Adelson's checkerboard. All right. So we can all take a look at this and say, hey, there's dark squares and there's light squares. All right. And when you look at square A versus square B, square A looks like a dark square, whereas square B looks like a light square. But if I take away all the other information around those two other squares, now we see they're the exact same color. So you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain. And the only thing I did was put an overlay on this. When I take it away, you see, hey, they go back to being different colors. And even when I take that overlay and I move it in, you see they go from being different colors to the same color, now back to different colors. So there's some things you can look up if you want to check this out. There's Moshe Bar, the Bar study. He talks about how human beings derive their environment in physiological context. There's a really great video by Dr. Donald Hoffman. It's a TED Talk where he talks about how we really see and how our brain determines reality. So those would be good things that you could check out. Other things you could look at, aside from us seeing those things, this is a factor of sequencing. Sequencing is something that happens in the brain where we make order out of chaos. We like things to be in order and sequential, and that's why we go white square, dark square, white square, dark square, right? Or you add in things like reification, like here. You see a cube, but the reality of it is it's 8 circles placed on a flat plane with pi wedges cut out of them, and your eye and your brain are connecting the dots quite literally and making it a 3-dimensional image, even though it's not. This is exactly why we saw things like, you remember the big hullabaloo about the blue dress versus the gold dress. It's all the same things. It determines what we see is based on lighting conditions, shade, shadow, our perspective, our angle. So why that's important is now when you add in things like video and things like compression rates, and you have video artifacts, in the one that we're going to talk about, there's noise and grain, you have color artifacts, you have motion artifacts, you have shadow flickering. All of those things are actually present in these videos. And so I pulled this one from Redacted, and this is where they show, like, and I just grabbed the 2 screen still shots. You can watch it on your own. But here they say, oh, there's clearly somebody there, and now there's not. It's A, some of those artifacts having to do with the video, but B, it also has to do with shadow and shading. And when you're taking a video like that that's been rendered and now you're zooming in on it, those things are going to shift, even though there may not have actually been anything there. What I think proves the fact that there was not somebody up there taking those shots, aside from some of the ballistics and the angles I'm going to show you, is the fact that that movement that they were highlighting in that video was not consistent with the rounds that were actually being fired at the time. You could hear the reports of the rifle rounds going. So is it plausible that there could have been somebody up there? Sure, anything's possible. However, I don't think it's probable, and I don't think it's probably related to what Crooks was doing at the time. So those sight lines and angles that I was talking about, they are going to determine where those impact points are going to be, and I think a lot of this stuff is going to come out with the ballistics matching that's going to occur. So this is what I was able to pull out from Google Earth. This is as close as I could get to looking over the top of the water tower and seeing the view there. I feel like not only would you have to contend with the trees, but you also have to contend with the grandstands and the back of those screens that were there on either side of those grandstands behind Trump. And just because some of those videos of those people that were able to catch the water tower, they caught it, they were in a different position looking at a different angle from where those rounds were actually impacted. It would be a little bit different if I was seeing video coming basically co-aligned, like parallel from where Trump or Chief Corey was shot or the other two victims were wounded. I think that would paint a different picture. So there have been plenty of other photos and videos put out about it, both between the Washington Post and the Associated Press. But like this one right here gives a really good demonstration of how that's almost a straight line shot from that rooftop right to where the podium was, and it goes right along line where Chief Corey was, unfortunately and tragically killed. Right now, if you pull this out a little bit more, you can see the water tower there. But from my eye, looking at it, I do have to consider that screen. I think that screen from the top of that water tower, you may have been able to see Trump, but I don't think you would have been able to see those other victims that were wounded in the fire. And this is a really good example of how just because something overhead, it looks one way, it does not necessarily mean that it looks that same way from the ground. And there was a couple other things that have been put out that I think really highlight this. This is one by the New York Times using Google Earth. And you see that Chief Corey was almost directly in line of Trump from where he was wounded. So the way I look at that is that's enfilading fire. All right. It's a lot easier for me to only have to make adjustments to my elevation than it is for me to have to make adjustments to windage. And when you're trying to traverse and elevate, that's where you're trying to make windage adjustments and elevation adjustments at the same time. That becomes much harder. And that's exactly what would have happened coming from the top of that tower, along with dealing with the angle cosine. And the other thing to consider is based on where he was standing when he was hit, I think that also shows that more than likely, I would say it's almost 100% certainty that those rounds came from that rooftop where Crooks was shooting. Here's another good viz of that. And again, but keep in mind, behind those bleachers is a big screen. I don't think that the chief would have been hit if the shooting was happening from that water tower. So all totaled, my assessment of this is that the shooter was shooting from the rooftop of where they found him and where he was ultimately shot and killed. I don't think that the water tower is in play at all. Now, that's not to say I'm not wrong. Maybe other information will come out that I don't know about. But based on what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing it. I don't believe it. I didn't see the 5 Vs. I didn't see the kinesics of a shooting position. I don't think that the trajectory matched, and I don't think that the viz from that location would have lended to being able to do that. Now, that is all to say, I in my mind am not ruling out who's to say that he did not have some kind of help, whether wittingly or unwittingly. I'm not saying that there weren't other people involved. There very well could have possibly been other people involved. There's just not enough information out now to know all that for certain until they release that. And I think that's where the transparency of an investigation is important. I am surprised that we have not had a press conference every single day since this occurred last Saturday of, it's been a week now. There should have been an update every single day. We've seen it with other natural disasters. We've seen it with other active shooters in other situations. And why we're not seeing it here, that's not for me to make that call. That's a policy decision. That's an executive decision. But I think that's exactly why we're starting to see some of these other alternative theories that come out, because people, whenever they are in a vacuum for information, their minds will start to run wild. And as I said before, people watch way too much TV. So I hope some of this information helped you guys out. I hope it gave you some more thought process on this. And feel free to hit Eric up if you won't have any more questions from me. You know where to find me as well. So take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
So let's go on to the next thing that has come up over and over, and a lot of people are talking about, and that's the reaction of the crowd behind Donald Trump. And I noticed before we started recording that my friend Spidey has Chase Hughes on talking about this exact incident. I didn't have time to watch it. So if we have any conclusions, these are fresh conclusions. We haven't been tipped off. We haven't seen the Chase video with Spidey. We all know each other, but we don't always communicate ahead of time. I can't wait to see what they've done with this.
We like the Secret Service.
Yeah. Oh, too soon. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so I want everybody to look at this woman behind Trump to the right, over here. She has, is it a black or a blue hat? I'm partially color blind, folks, so bear with me. But on the right side of the screen, there's a woman wearing sunglasses and a ball cap that is a dark color that's like either a blue or navy blue or black or something like that. I'm not quite sure. So please focus on her. A lot of attention has been paid to her. This is zoomed out more, and I wanted to have it zoomed out because I feel like you can get better context. Her behavior has a lot of people questioning what's going on. So watch her, watch her, watch her. There. The first shot, second shot, sorry. The one that hit Trump, the second shot has just happened. And you can see her nice, clearly framed in this shot, right? I may go back just a little bit so we can catch up again. And she held up a sign. She didn't actually hold up a sign. Look at that. In the zoomed in footage, it looked like she held up a sign. But if you're zoomed out, this woman did not hold up a sign. So I just want to point that out, that one of the rumors was that she held up her sign and could have been signaling the shooter. People have written into me saying that that's actually the shooter's sister. I don't think it is. People have also been running rampant yesterday that was the assistant director of the FBI in charge of incident or insider threats. I don't believe it is. I think there's good photographic evidence that they're not the same person. They don't look alike. But then the last one is just now, I mean, literally as I'm recording this, I saw that it isn't even her holding up the sign with Joe Biden. So let's watch it again. And I appreciate you guys, bearing with me on this.
I'll put it on a big screen on this one. Yeah.
She did not hold up this. No, she is not.
But the thing is that there's but I'm hoping people do understand they do have Secret Service agents in the crowd. They
absolutely.
I don't know if anybody would be like, if I found that was a FBI agent, I wouldn't be surprised, right? I'd be like, yeah, they have people in the crowd.
But I want to focus on every bit of behavior that we actually see, because the speculation is, hey, she was involved, she signaled, her behavior was very weird. So let's just keep watching. I wanted to clear up the sign part. So she did not hold up a sign signaling. She is looking to the right. People are saying, look, she's looking to the right, hold up a sign. Well, how many people in the crowd are looking to the right, including Donald Trump?
Yeah.
He said, hey, look at these figures. She's looking to the right. He's looking to the right. That makes sense. Wouldn't you agree? That they're looking at the chart that was put up on the screen. We found out. So let's just keep watching. Okay, now she looks forward. Okay. looks right, looks forward. Now that happened. Okay. So people are talking about, oh my God, look how calm this person is. So let's just keep watching. Okay. And they're like, oh, look at this. She's totally calm. Everybody's diving for cover. She calmly pulls out her phone and starts recording. What's going on? This person had previous knowledge.
No, I don't think. Well,
that's what's being claimed. That's what's being claimed. So
I think people are just desperate. It's like sometimes, because don't forget, when if this is, I'm not sure if this is an age, I'm not sure, but generally in today's age, I've seen situations where tragic things have been happening, and the first thing people do, instead of helping the person who's going through something, they pull out their phone to record it. And
I agree.
That's essentially the kind of the thing we're living in, the times we're living in, unfortunately. Somebody's going to pull out their phone and record.
Okay, I have a question for you too. Another thing I just thought of. If I'm here, because she didn't stay up, they kind of imply that she just sits there up there,
she's already got a phone in her hand there already.
Yeah. Yes, and she's going down now. I have a question, Gavin. You deal with this kind of thing in cover. Could you use your phone as a way to verify what's going on and keep yourself undercover so you don't personally get hit? I don't know for sure, but to not only necessarily record, but actually use it sort of to observe while you're skulking.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I've not done that in that situation myself, but I mean, yes, it is something that if you're trying to either keep a record of something that's happened, or if you are a federal agent or Secret Service, you're in the back there, and it's your job to blend into the crowd, but also using your discretion to be able to use your phone to record what happened. Then yeah, I suppose it's a fair assumption. So,
no, I meant for cover.
For cover.
Like I'm sitting there and I'm behind a barrier so I don't get hit, but I can hold my phone up.
Yeah.
If my phone gets hit, I'm not going to die, but I still have visibility. Have you ever done that? And I've literally used that before, where I can't see something because I'm in too much of a crowd or it's very poor. So I hold my phone up.
Like a periscope.
Yes. Is that completely outlandish?
Oh, no, not outlandish. I have done that kind of thing before, but yeah, I mean,
rewind it back a little bit. Now, obviously, you body language guys are gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, but generally, what we were trained is that if something like this happens, like say a popping sound goes over something, there's usually this like waterfall reaction. That's why they usually tell us don't run if you don't have to, because there's like the stampede effect. One person starts running, someone else starts running, and the more people start running, the more people are going to do that same action because they don't know why you're running, but that fear factor. That's why people running out of a place or just yelling fire. So here, if you look, there's like this effect where a couple of people start ducking, but then more and more people in the crowd start ducking. Now, if you look at this woman right behind Trump with the red hat, the red shirt, and the sunglasses, she is actually one of the last people to react. She's actually reacting worse than the other woman we're pointing to. So I think the big problem is that we're expecting everybody to act or react the same way to the stimulus, and that just doesn't happen because some people are more sensitive to the crowd or to the mob, where other people are less sensitive and maybe, hey, why is everybody doing it? Because I've done that before. Like, why the hell is everybody running? And then I'll be the last guy. Or sometimes I'll see one person running and I'm running with the crowd and then we're like, why the hell are we all running? Oh, I was running for the ice cream. You should have said something. You know,
you stole my thoughts, Nate, and I want to keep going because that's kind of where I was going with this.
Yeah, because
she's here. She's filming. She's down. Hold on. Okay, now using the same point of logic, look at the goofball here with the hat. What's his story? Why are you up like that? Why are you up looking around like what are you doing? And what are you doing, dude, with the other hat over there? What about you doing, the guy that people call JFK Jr. lives? What are they all doing? So these people right here are very much clearly in the line of fire, right? They could easily be hit. They're very curious. They seem a little too calm and too curious at what the hell's going on. But I'm going to keep going because let's continue watching her. And look, where is she? She's way down there. See, she's continuing to duck further, or am I wrong?
And
She
the
is
woman
definitely undercover.
the woman, she's holding her drink. The other guy, he's just standing up like nothing's going on. The guy in the blazer, right, straight behind.
Right, and he's the one that a lot of people have claimed is JFK Jr., by the way. I'm not kidding. There's a whole meme. I forgot his name, but yeah. Anyway.
Vincent somebody, isn't it?
Yeah, Vincent
Fusker or Fusker or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's he was. There was a quick video on him doing the rounds online as well.
So okay, so really quick going forward, do we all agree that she could be federal, she could have been law enforcement, she could have been a spectator, even though I will say Candace Owens said that was a private citizen and she definitely was not the assistant director of the FBI, if that makes any difference to anyone.
I don't believe it was the assistant director of the FBI. Looking at the photos that I've got and the comparisons I've done, the facial recognition software I've used to compare one to the other, it's coming back as negative. It's not her. And there is probably, like what Nate says, there's probably about 20 to 30% of the crowd here, even at that point, that have still got no idea what's going on. You know, like we were discussing previously about gunshots, people have an idea in their mind what they think gunshots sound like, and that can vary greatly depending on the environment and whatever else. So you hear a couple of pops coming from over there. It could be anything from, in their mind, to firecrackers, electrical faults, any number of things. So it's not until everybody starts ducking that everybody else starts going, well, why is everybody ducking? I better get down as well. And then trying to think, well, what was that sound? And they're still trying to figure out what's happening. You know, they don't understand what it is. And then afterwards maybe think, wow, is that gunfire? So that's possibly what's happened there, in my opinion.
Because I agree 1,000%, because I'm assuming the bullets come first because the bullets are traveling faster than sound. Then the sounds come, and you're at a rally where they probably had some type of fireworks and stuff like that. You know, to ramp up the crowd. You have loud noises, and people. It always shocks us. People expect gunshots to sound like movie gunshots.
Yeah, exactly.
Bow, 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 bow. Like it's clear that's a gunshot. But here, if you listen, they're not that. It's like pop, 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 pop. So the people who I think recognize their gunshots are people on the professionals.
Went for cover.
Those are gunshots. The people who don't recognize, like, what the hell is that? Because don't forget, those sounds are coming from 150 yards away. So they're not like they're right up on them. Now, I think people in the building should know, oh my God, those are gunshots, because they're going to hear them a lot louder. So in trying to judge how people are reacting to gunshots that they're listening to that are 150 yards away, that are a lot that sound a lot less than, that don't sound like gunshots at all.
Exactly.
I think it's too much of a leap to say they should have reacted like this because they should have known they were gunshots. You just don't know. And matter of fact, I would say we should listen to it again to see how much they don't sound like traditional gunshots.
Yeah, we did cover it in the wasn't there somebody who said,
I lived in Harlem long enough to know that gunshots do not sound like making popcorn on the stove.
I want to shift into the another thing going around, though, because I'm trying to just address all these things. The shooter had long hair. The shooter was bullied and things like that. And there has been a trend of late, or there have been multiple instances of late, that individuals who are identified as, quote, trans have been involved in some mass shootings. And this picture started to go around that the shooter in question may be trans. Now, I did everything I could with reverse image lookups and everything. And it appears to me that the source of this is from a random Telegram account that I can't verify, or Reddit, or something to that like. This is not widely accepted. I don't know if it's even the same person. There was already a troll who was out there pretending to be the shooter who released a video, and that has been completely disproven that it was just somebody who resembled pictures of the shooter making statements. So I don't believe that this is a picture of the shooter. I'm not going to say if the shooter's trans, not trans, or other thing, but I don't think we have any proof that the shooter is anything than what has been presented to us, which is an individual who is 20 years old, went to high school in the area, etc. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you think no, absolutely, the shooter was trans, or I should just say killer, because this individual is a killer.
Yeah. I go ahead, Gavin. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Eric knows, because I checked into this as well, and I looked in, and I couldn't find anything matching that photograph that was showing up anywhere else, apart from one or two places which were questionable. There was nothing concrete to confirm one way or the other. So if anybody can find the internet these days seems to be the way to go. You ask somebody, and 48 hours later, magically somebody will come up with it. So so if you can, do your stuff.
I think the political, this is more the political aspect to it, because, obviously, if this person was a registered Democrat, this story would be a lot different, and it would be interesting. But the person being a registered Republican, but then gave money, $15 to Democrats and all that stuff, I think people are trying to narrow it down and say this is what the left is doing, versus understanding this is just probably some sick person who,
I can push on that really quickly, and I think clear it up. Absolutely. During the Republican primaries, Nikki Haley was one of the competitors against Donald Trump, and there were a lot of Democrats, Democrat operatives, who asked, especially in areas where you have to be registered in the primary, to go register as a Republican and vote for Nikki Haley to try to stop Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So it is entirely possible that the shooter, killer, and no, I'm deliberately not using his names, folks, because I believe in when you use somebody's name, you're adding to their own personal glory, if that's what they're after. And I refuse to name them. It's easy to find. But this individual registered as a Republican to vote against Trump in the primary, to try to keep him off the ticket. According to other students, this person despised Trump, hated Trump, and the person did donate to Joe Biden. Yes, it might be $15, but how much money have you donated to candidates, Gavin?
None recently. None ever, actually.
Okay, so and you're in your 40s. Mm-hmm. I am 50. I have never donated a dime to a candidate before. Nate, have you donated?
Nope. Never.
Okay, so now
and you're in your 30s, right?
I'm in my 40s.
Nate's the youngest of us all. Okay, so I'm just pointing out. And by the way, when I was 20, $15 to me was more important to me than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
If you said, "Oh, I donated $15 to a candidate," well, yeah, so what? I mean, that's not a big deal. I agree. But the younger you are, and to actually make the proactive statement of donating $15, I mean, hell, most people watching this video have never bought a super chat for $1. So it does count, people. It does count that you're actually putting money to a campaign.
Well, see, my only issue would be I would have to accept a lot of assumptions to get to the point where I have to explain the fact. So the fact is he's a registered Republican. Now you're giving me the motivations and reasons why it's possible, but I don't know if that I can see a situation when that's happening, or I can see a situation where the person could either have marked the wrong thing. I'm registered Republican. Could have actually registered Republican when they first registered when they were 18, because sometimes you have to just select the service you register. You register Republican, and then just forget, right? Like, hey, I'm not a Republican. I'm a Democrat. I just don't know.
So I don't. Crystal, a lifelong Republican who despises Donald Trump and voted for Biden.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the only thing I can say is obviously this person hated Trump, obviously, and I don't think the voting record of these lunatics actually even really matters.
Yeah, I totally agree. And let's go ahead and jump to another video clip that I'll let it speak for itself.
Here's the question that I have on that. These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day.
He was given 9 seconds for a photo op. You got to keep listening. She's a gift. Thank you, Joy Reid. No, Joy, stay on the air. You are a gift, please.
Oh my God,
please. 9 seconds. Oh, hey, pardon me. I'd like to take my iconic photo shot. Hey, is the angle good on this? You sure? Okay, let's get the shot.
But his survival of that and bouncing right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days, doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same? I mean, it's not exactly the same. It's an unsafe incident.
Trump got COVID during the height of COVID when we didn't know if it was killing. What the height? Remember, he did the whole. So she calling him brave from back then. Like this makes no sense.
Nate, you don't understand.
No, I do understand. She's an idiot.
Is the equivalent of being a bullet.
No, I haven't even gotten there yet. I haven't even gotten to that point yet. I want to stay at the part where surviving COVID is like an assassination attempt. Trump survived COVID. He was over 70, right? At the height of COVID, we didn't have any pills or anything to help us. Trump survived it, right? So she's essentially saying Trump was the greatest president alive, and he should have won the last election. Now we get to Biden, and because he's 81 and got COVID should have but this shows you.
Hold on. I got a note. This is Jen Psaki. She's no fan of Trump, okay? Former press secretary. Look at her expression. Gavin, do your body language. Even she's going, what?
Yeah.
What did I just hear? What did I just hear?
I'll be honest, Eric, I don't even think I need to. Her expression is saying it all. I mean, look, come on. Really. And I mean, let's put this into perspective here, right? Nate, I've got two options for you, right? Next week, number one is get shot at. Number two is get COVID. Which one would you prefer? Yeah.
I'll take the COVID.
Eric, same question to you.
It's a big sense, but don't worry. Though, let's be nice. I've got to be fair to people, guys. So, Joy Reid has talked about it elsewhere. So let's, without all the distractions of like other people, let's see what she has to say.
We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician, even though this man is still a Secret Service protected, and presidential candidate.
This can't
we
be
know
real.
almost nothing.
This isn't real. This is
Why?
AI. This gotta
Why
be
don't
AI
we know
generated.
that much? We know that 3 people were shot. 1 person, unfortunately, was killed at the rally. We don't know where they were sitting or standing relative to him. We don't know why.
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to use this video to answer her question. Where were they sitting relative to him?
This is the area we're going to focus in on. Here you can see the 3 victims that were injured by gunfire and where they were standing in the bleachers. We're going to turn around and demonstrate exactly where these bullets came from. This model represents Thomas Crooks. His position can be seen here in this image, which illustrates exactly where he was. Turning around, we can see the path of all the bullets that were fired from this location. I placed a 10-foot red disc downrange to represent what an average shooter could hit easily. Now let's take a look at this first shot fired. Coming from our key location, bullet 1 grazes President Trump's ear. This is the same bullet that hits a spectator in the stands.
I think it's
we know this through video evidence. As President Trump is talking, the first shot rings out just after he says, "Take a look at what happened."
Something that said, "Take a look at what happened."
We can see the vapor trail of a bullet strike, which is the same bullet that struck President Trump's ear a split second earlier, and this video is this location here. Back at the podium, President Trump is shot and grabs his ear, falling to the ground as more shots rang out. In total, there were 7 or 8 shots, so let's rewind and watch this at regular speed.
Take a look at what happened.
With all that gunfire, it's easy to understand how these spectators were injured, even though they were not the target.
Do either of you have any trouble with that recreation?
No, that looks exactly what happened.
It seems, from the information we've got, seems to be reasonably accurate.
Okay. Now, I thought that, her saying that, which, by the way, I'm deliberately showing some of these people doing that because they deserve to be shamed a little bit. We
No,
want this to be on the public record.
no. Eric, don't sugarcoat that. That's, and I'm going to say it, that's Nazi level propaganda which he just put out there. That's like Joseph Goebbels type shit. Glass, like, really? We freaking saw the bullet. Like this is that type of propaganda, and it's not even an embarrassment. It's like, and that's the reason why MSNBC had to take off Morning Joe, because I think now you're really starting to see how crazy the liberal side of the aisle truly is. And I want to be very clear for this. There is no way I think any reasonable person could sit there and formulate those opinions and think that what they're saying is accurate, right? After seeing the video, and she's a journalist. This is someone who they called to be a journalist making these statements.
Please
That
put
is the most
air quotes on that.
embarrassing. That's the most embarrassing piece of tape I think I've seen from a journalist who a lot of people out there respect. Like she literally came out of her mouth. She said it could be glass.
I wouldn't call her a journalist.
No, of course not. Of course not. But
yeah,
that's what she presents herself to be.
Yeah.
And I think she's so desperate to stop the bad orange man and to try to keep people deaf, dumb, and blind that she could tell us anything.
Which is
She
what's
literally
probably created this issue in the first place. This
Yes.
is the kind of thing which, at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't realise is the loudest voices are the far left and the far right. But in the middle, there's a group of like kind of people, the largest group of people who are just your average person going on about their lives and can think about things sensibly. But at the far end of either of these sides, there are people taking statements and news flashes and things really literally. When people are putting tweets out there saying, Donald Trump is the biggest threat to Western society and blah blah blah, and you get crazies like this who then go, right, I'm going to shoot him then if he's a threat to my future and my life, and that's where this kind of action is coming from, because it's been fueled by so-called journalists like this.
All right, so to wrap things up.
It's so bad. That was so bad. My God, I'm honestly shocked. I didn't expect. Because this is somebody who has a national platform on MSNBC, right? This is somebody who's a national platform who goes out and talks to millions of people, and she's saying that crap to them. And I'm telling you, there's probably going to be people who believe that, believe this, and it's not only it's not only an embarrassment for the country, but I think it really shows you how when I'm more sympathetic now from when the right says it's the left radicals, we just saw it in full display. That is what they're talking about, what Joy Reid just said.
I agree. And to wrap things up, it's not up to Nate, it's not up to Gavin, it's not up to me. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you think. And just to let you know, I am reading the comments. I do want to hear, and if you have strong words, fine, please share them. I will try to keep on top of this and update as more information comes in. And by the way, like the water tower, I'm not going to rule it out 100%. I'm not going to say that it is not possible. It is possible, but it has not been proven to me. So keep seeking out evidence, keep seeking out witnesses, keep putting things out there. I am all ears. I do want to know, but I personally think, and you guys can concur or disagree, that there's plenty of enough shenanigans and crappy procedures and dropped balls to point out right now with just the evidence that we have that has been released, that we don't necessarily need a second shooter in a water tower to make this incredibly troubling.
I agree 1,000%, and I'm just gonna my simple rant is we got to go out there and vote and take back our country. This is ridiculous. Now we got to go back. We got to go to those polls and we got to show the world what we are about. Unless you're going to vote for a guy who's saying surviving COVID is just like surviving assassination attempts, who could barely speak, he could barely walk downstairs, or you're going to vote for a guy because I always say that it's about when you're under pressure, right? That's when you know who the man is when they're under pressure. When the bullets are coming down, what are you going to do? Right? It's not when you're sitting there drinking coffee. It's not when you're taking a crap on the toilet and when everything is safe. It's when the crap hits the fan. What's the type of man you want, or the woman do you want driving that car? We see the type of man Joe Biden is. When he was up on that debate stage and crap hit the fan, he folded like a lawn chair. When Trump is under gunfire, just got shot in the head and being pulled off by Secret Service agents, he had the presence of mind to do a couple of things. People are saying that pumping his fist for 3 minutes or for 9 seconds was a photo op. No. To me, you know what that was? That was a man who was in the middle of thousands of people who knew that there's a possible riot that's going on because there's gunfire coming, right? People are being shot around him. And that moment, he put up his hand and said, fight, fight, fight. The first thing that happened to those thousands of people was calm the crowd down. You didn't have any stampede. You didn't have anything. He calmed the crowd down in that moment. Nobody ran. They stood up and cheered. The shooter was gone. And everybody got out of there safe, the ones who weren't shot, because he had the peace of mind to say, this is not going to stop us, and we're going to make sure everyone else is okay. But when you look at it reasonably, that's why Mark Zuckerberg said,
Yeah, I mean, seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life. And I think, look, it's, at some level as an American, it's like hard to not get kind of emotional about that spirit and that fight. And I think that's why a lot of people like the guy.
That was an iconic photo. He wasn't doing it for himself. He was under fire. He was doing it for everybody else there. How many lives did he save stopping a stampede? Really think about it, people. How many lives were saved because he calmed the crowd down in that moment and stopped the stampede of thousands of people trying to get away? That is what I think that's what we miss sometimes. So my thoughts to you people out there is look at what happened, look at what everybody's saying, and vote your conscience. I know who I'm going to vote. You see my American shield shot up back here. You see my hat. If you don't know who I'm going to vote for, then I don't know what I can do for you. But I think you need to look, if you're a Democrat or Republican, you need to look inside and say, who do you want to run this country? If it's Joe Biden, then I think you got a problem.
Gavin, I want to hear from you, but also we have to confirm you will not be voting.
I will not be voting. I won't be voting Republican because I'm still alive, and I won't be voting Democrat because I'm not in the country. So no, I won't be voting at all. However, I do think that overall, everybody just needs to calm down a little bit. And there's a lot of speech going on by people who don't realize their voices are being heard by so many people. They're so influential. That you've got people out there. For example, there's a guy who's just become a best-selling author. He's never written a book in his life. He's become a best-selling author overnight because one Instagram influencer said, buy this man's book. Right? And all of a sudden, the guy's a multimillionaire. Really great that it happened to him. But what it shows the power of a single voice. And when you've got a multitude of voices on the media, on all these different platforms, on all these different places, and they're spreading hate one way or another, whichever side it's coming from, they need to understand that those voices are really powerful and it could easily be taken the wrong way. Instead of slagging off the enemy, bring to the table what you're going to do to make the world a better place.